12,000 people were killed in one single day in Goma. 12,000. But the media is talking about 3,000, 4,000. It looks like they were flies. They didn't have a family. These people didn't have children, or the children didn't have a father. Same applied to me 60 years ago.
Hello and welcome to Self Upgrade. I'm Aida Abubakar Limando, your host, and today we are going to talk about a topic, a very grim topic, but it's something that we need to talk about. Actually, we're going to talk about the conflict, the crisis, I'd rather say, that is happening in the Congo and which has been going on for 30 years now. And to help me tackle this discussion, tackle that very, very sensitive topic, I have a guest today who is Mr. Jean Bwasa, who is going to help us understand what is really going on. Because the media can sometimes feed us with narratives that are very far from the reality. So Mr. Bwasa is going to help us understand what is really happening. First of all, let's welcome him to Self Upgrade. Hello, Jean. How are you today?
I'm fine, Haida, and thank you for having us on your platform. And we hope that we're going to try and explain what is happening in the heart of Africa into Mama Congo. I call Congo Mama Congo, nothing else.
So, Jean, first of all, before going, before starting and going into the heavy stuff, can we start by you just telling us who you are and what do you do in the community?
Well, Aida, who I am, I'm first to start with, and this is what I have been doing for the past 10 years now, to try to get back my real identity, which is Gisumba Mavu, and this will tap on with the history of the Congo likewise, because I was born in 1964 during the hype of the Mulele rebellion, so they say in history, but which was actually the defense of the land. And my father died 6 months before I was born, and my mom just delivered me and passed on. So I'm an orphan by birth, given the situation of the Congo in the 1960s as a follow-up to the assassination of Patrice Emery Lumumba. And I grew up as an orphan all my life, which entails that when I became more mature, I think I engaged myself and committed myself to defend my brothers, my sisters, mothers, aunts, and whoever would have been a victim of human rights violation. So, in a nutshell, that was my birth. So, from the age of 16, that's when I started, for instance, in the boarding house to rebel against the food that were being fed, or not abiding to bow down to Mobutu regime, for instance, to stand and salute the flag and all these type of things that were nonsense, or nonsensical rather. And in the 1990s, when Mobutu was toppled, Kabila came into the regime. That was the same people would be arrested, and there was no change. So I would normally step on and, for instance, defend the people that were arrested in Zaire and in the Congo, and it got me into the trouble. And eventually, 1998, that's when Laurent Désiré Kabila asked that the Rwandan Tutsi return to their land. And my house was bombed on the 2nd August 1998, which marks the beginning of the Africa War, where 14 countries were involved within Africa. And I had now to flee and go and hide myself in my village in the southwest of Kinshasa, precisely in Kitondolo. And I was between Kitondolo and Kikwit, where I had established uh, earlier on an agro-pastoral, a medical center, and a school with my community, which was deserving 6 villages surrounding Kitondolo, which is the village where my parents were, but I was born in the forest. Exactly what is happening in Goma today, where people are forced to leave their villages and go in a land or a territory that is unknown to them and leaving everything behind them.
I mean, while you were telling your story, I was like, wow. As from your birth, like you went through all those difficulties already. Because when we see stuff on the TV, we find it difficult to really understand, the hardship. Obviously, we know how hard it is, and we know that we in a conflict area, people always suffer. But having like someone who survived, all those conflicts, telling the story like this, it's really, really, I was going to say fascinating, but it's heartbreaking actually. And as you were telling your story, you mentioned something. You said that you were rebelling against, the regime, the Mobutu regime. Like you were not saluting the flag. Why was that?
Well, as I told the story, my grandmother was the one who brought me up, was a chief, a queen in the village during the Mulele rebellion. I'm going to keep it Mulele rebellion because that is how it is known in the history. And because they fled in the forest so that they would give birth to me, they gave me the name Gisumba Mavu. So Gisumba Mavu literally means in my language, Kipende, it means he who bought the earth. So that's literally. But having grown up, I understood that I had a mission and a purpose is to stand for my people, is to stand for the people that I love most. And that's what I've been doing. So my grandmother never told me that I was an orphan. This is the first thing. And it is important that we understand how we African, in terms of our sociology, we bring our children. Even if you are an orphan, you are not an orphan in a society. So my grandmother brought me up and she told me that your mom is overseas. So my mom was actually my aunt. And when I turned 4, I was flown to France, where I lived for close to 12 years until I would say grade 11 here. So, and I didn't like it. I've never loved Europe at all. So we were not in in a place where I would love the food or love the way I was being treated. Somebody would touch you and say you are not dirty. Or remember, it's the time. I always tell my my people it was a time when in the 1960s there weren't many blacks like today. So it 1968 until the 1979, 82, I returned in the Congo, in Zaire, then in 1982, because my mom could not bear the fact that I would not, my aunt, but it is difficult for me to call my aunt uh, aunt. That's not the African way. My mom would normally not fancy to see me unhappy every single time. And then she decided that because you don't want to live here, you can return to Zaire. and I had no idea what Zaire was like at that time. So when I returned, there was dictatorship with Mobutu and his all associates. And for me, having lived in an area where there was a freedom of expression, I go to a boarding school and they give you food that is not appropriate. Then I started rebelling against the regime. You would see teachers doing things that were not appropriate. I would also say, no, this is not the way I was taught. So it gets me into trouble several times. It's unfortunate I've got marks on my body of the way I was being treated by the military at that time. And I started standing for everything or thing that was not humanly acceptable for a human being. Now we turned into 1990, the 1990s. Then we had the perestroika and the glasnost in Russia, which dislocated Russia, and it happened in Africa as well. Mobutu convened what we call the Conférence Nationale Souveraine, the general dialogue for the Congolese, and people gathered there. And then we had the regime change and a little bit of democracy, which degenerated until today. And people were not accepting that people are able to circumvent a named prime minister after another, while it was actually, in actual fact, the way white imperialists wanted him to vacate the power so that they would destroy the Congo that we have today. And it is well documented in a book, which is called White Malice. I also have read another book, which was the Congo Cables. During that time already, we had established with my family what we call aid and solidarity to Africa. And I was the representative in Zaire. And that's where I built the medical center in my village. But I must say it was also an experience as young as I was, 23 years old, because you bring the material in the village. And often we believe that when we are bringing what we call development or infrastructure, it is the needs of the population that is there. While sometimes it is not, because we don't understand their aspiration. So for 5 years, I spent time from Kinshasa to the village, and you'll go back and restart again until one day I was very close with them. And I said, yes, I might be your son. I might be your grandson. I might be your nephew. Uh, but if this is the way you're going to treat all the materials that we are bringing here, then we'd rather stop. And I decided that each member of the family, of the clans, because there are 4 clans in our village, must bring a brick. If you've got 10 kids, each kid must bring 10 bricks. So, and on that brick, you write the name of your clan or you write the name of your family. So within a village, we gathered enough bricks for us to build the medical center, and so that they are not going to destroy it. So every single child of the village has now on that medical center his name that is inscribed in that. Then we started the school and then the agricultural, because we noticed that people are suffering because they don't have food. And in order to have food for them, it is very important that they got the training to go and plant and sow and labor for that food for the garden, including in my yard here, although I'm in South Africa. But I have a garden, and I'll send you the clip and the video for the community. Even where I live, I don't buy vegetables, onions, and all this because it's all in my yard. I can buy the rest of the things, but what is important and vital, I think we can do it ourselves. And this is what we need to inculcate in the people. And that also represented a danger for the people in power, because once you are able to leverage your community and your community becomes independent and emancipated on the basic needs, so who are you to do that? You are a revolutionary.
Mhm.
Then in the capital, I went to the capital, started doing the same with the youth of my area. I think I started building my house. I was 23 years old. Uh, and then it got bombed in 1998 on the 2nd August, 1400, 3 minutes and 37 seconds. And it forced me to flee Kinshasa, return to my village while I was preparing to exit Congo at that time.
That leaves me speechless, but we have to continue. So, um, with everything that is happening in the Congo, I think when you are not Congolese, it's difficult to really understand why that conflict is there and why is it lasting that long. So please, could you take us back to how it started, and then so that we can understand what is happening today, basically.
Ida, first and foremost, I was in a conference 3 or 4 days ago for an organization called Keep Left. And I always think, and that's very important, the way you are doing it, to give the opportunity for us to explore more in terms of history. But I'm not going to go to keep a long shot on the history, but rather to make people understand that
Mhm.
what they usually call the Berlin Conference is the root cause of what is going on today in the Congo. First and foremost, it was never called the Berlin Conference. That was called Das Congo Konferenzia ein Berliner in German. So the Congo Conference
Okay.
in Berlin. That's how it was called. And Leopold
Wow.
II was designated as the caretaker of Mama Congo, the caretaker of Mama Congo. And as a caretaker, each and every stakeholders, the 14 families that were gathering around that office where Angela Merkel was the chancellor of Germany, they could do anything in the Congo and pay the royalty to the Belgian family. And until today, Congo has never changed that status because it was first of all called the Association, International Association of the Congo. So no name basically. So International Association of the Congo. Then it became the independent state of the Congo, ruled by the Leopold II over many years, and he actually killed, slaughtered 15 million people. And this has never been given the possibility for an international inquest or justice or reparation of the damages caused to the Congo children. And if I were to go back, this happened again in the slave trade, because this is not documented in the history that our children are being taught. 40% of the African who went into slavery came from Mama Congo. And it was just to dehumanize and broke apart the spirituality of the first land ever created by God the Creator, Tanchru, Mama Congo. Because Tanchru means the land of the beginning. And this is what I have been doing in the past 20 years now, trying to deconstruct the history that we were being taught at school. And as I said earlier on, I remember Monsieur de Coubertin, my history teacher in France, used to tell me that everything that you do, every time you write your essay, it goes opposite with what I'm teaching. And I used to spend time in libraries and reading as young as the age of 8 and trying to go deeper. So now to come back to the history of today, it is very important that we explore what prevailed during the colonization. First of all, Belgium did not exist until 1830. Then we had the First World War I, which ended in 1918. And the birth of Rwanda is only after that, because Rwanda was the colony of Germany. Now, when Germany lost the war, they seceded the Rwanda and Urundi to the Belgian king, Leopold II, and it becomes the Rwanda-Urundi Congo. But during that time, what they did, they were transplanting the people from Rwanda, Urundi to Congo who lived like a community. So, for instance, in 1910, there were Tutsi Rwandan who were brought in Likasi in Katanga. So these tribes were brought into Congo and lived there and had their families there, but they never had the intention of what we call today uh, hegemony or imperialism to dominate other people, because the Tutsi always think that they are superior to other African ethnical levels, such as the Bantu people. So the Rwandan people and the Congolese inhabitants, they lived peacefully until the 1990s. And it is very important to mention the fact that during Mobutu regime in 1971, his chief of staff, Bisengimana, Barthélemy Bisengimana, was a Tutsi. And he actually ensured that many of the Tutsi and the Rwandan could flock into Zaire at that time. And when they flocked there, they had the intention that one day they will seize our country. So the Bisengimana, the Gisaro were in Zaire, and we lived peacefully. I remember studying with Rwandan people at university. There was no problem until 1990. We must also remember that during that time, there were people that we called American, that we called the Peace Corps volunteer. These Peace Corps volunteers who came from the United States, they were with us in Zaire. They could be in the most remote corner of Zaire, but they were there to study the Zairean minds and our way of thinking. And these are things they don't tell the people. So until 1990s, their mission was over and they returned. In 1994, we had the so-called Rwandan genocide, which has turned to be today the Tutsi genocide. And the Rwandan we were living with in the Congo, most of them returned. I remember one of our lecturer who was a social linguistic lecturer, Paul Gahambe, became Minister of Education in his home country, Rwanda. Now, we could say that the Rwandan genocide was there, and we know in terms of history what happened the UN asked that we open our border, Mobutu opened the borders so that the Rwandan could come and find themselves a refuge in the eastern side of the Congo. And most of them flocked into the Congo. I had an uncle at that time who was working for the World Health Organization. He crossed with one of them in his car. And when they came at the border, the Zairian army said, "But you're crossing with somebody in the boot of your car." He said, "Yes." They said, "You must execute him." And he refused as a medical doctor. But when they gave the same arm to the Rwandan person to execute my uncle, he was about to do it, and the soldiers, they just say they could not give him a chance to do that. So this is how heartless are these African people that we have on this continent. And from that story, when our uncle came back home, he told us the story. We were completely lost that human being could do that. Congolese people are people that are cheerful, they smile, they laugh, they love life. I'm not saying that they are perfect, but I'm saying they love life. That's how Congolese are.
Myself, I'm not Congolese, but I remember, I was studying in France, and I needed basically to come to the UK for my internship, but I didn't know anyone here. And I had a friend at the university who was Congolese, so he was like, "Yeah, I actually have a sister who lives in London." So I was, at first I was like, "I don't know your sister. You are very nice, but I don't know your sister." He was like, "Yeah, don't worry. You can go to her place." And I remember arriving there, and the way I was received, I couldn't believe my eyes. The way they were treating me and making sure that I was okay, that, I was feeling well, that, they were engaging me to make sure that I don't feel, as a stranger, basically. And yeah, I stayed there for a weekend, but I was like, this is not something I'm used to, because in my country, my people, we are very hospitable, like people are very nice as well. But that was the very first time that I was seeing that kind of, kindness, basically. And just to testify with what Jean was saying, very kind people. And just for the little story, my husband is Congolese. So, yeah, they are really, really nice people. And I've been in the community for over a decade. And I can't tell you about, any person who is like like I can say, oh, that person is very bad. Obviously people have their personalities, but you cannot say that there are people who are ready to rob you or to kill you or stuff like that. Very kind people. So I just wanted to highlight that.
No, but even when you're talking about robbing, have you ever been in Kinshasa?
No, not
Not
yet.
yet. Well, during our time in Kinshasa, where those people who exchange money, your dollars, any foreign currency, they were just in the streets there. And you want to change your currency, you will go and change, not in the
Hmm.
bank, you change on the street. And there were plenty. And there's nobody's going to come and steal you. These are new forms of life that has been brought to our country, to our moral, to our ways of life. I don't remember going to Matonge and changing my money and somebody bringing give them this money. It never happened like it is happening today. So broke they, they have broken our moral and our compass in terms of who we are as Bantu and Ubuntu people filled with empathy. And we have become uh, revengeful toward the situations that are happening in our country. I mean, if a person speaks Rwanda today, you just go, "Who's this? Why? Why should I welcome a Rwandan person?" or a Tutsi person. I can tell you from experience when we're doing the food distribution during COVID, and we were asked to go and give food parcels to a Rwandan community. So the Congolese people, because our organization was primarily for Congolese, they were saying, why should you give food parcels to Rwandan? We were almost skinned to death with my wife because they said, no, this food is for Congolese. But we said, this is a crisis. So it touches everyone. And the Rwandans that are here are not necessarily pro-Kagame regime. So we gave them the food parcels, but they were not happy. Another episode that I can recall when I went to save some Congolese people that were victims of what they call xenophobia, but I don't call it xenophobia. I've got my own term that is philophobia that I might explore later on. And I went there, the same community that was there in Zires in Northwest, that community was mainly a Swahili community coming from the eastern side of the Congo, Goma, Fizi, Bukavu, and they were all talking in Swahili, which I don't understand. So I had a translator. Then one of them was not Congolese, it was from Burundi. And we hosted them. This is the psychological oppression that we find ourselves when we do no longer have tolerance for one another, for the other human. And I saved those people. They were nearly burnt in the hills and forest there. Brought them in Johannesburg. We accommodated them for almost a year until we learned that one of them was Burundian. And then people ask you, how do you accommodate somebody who's from another country? So, and as a human rights activist, I say I'm a human rights activist. I don't check colors, and I don't check whether you are blonde or you are brown or you are what. So during that time, my uncle then he saw how the Rwandan person was acting, and he was surprised. He came and told us the story, and since that time, I never trusted Rwandan people. We can just speak, we can be friends, but not inviting you to to my place. Now, I arrived in 1998. As I was saying, my house was bombed. Went to the village until I fled to the village, between the village and Kikwit in the southwest of Congo, Zaire at that time, and until 2003, I decided to leave, but I had no intention to come back overseas because I don't think that overseas that the place my purpose is. Then I came to South Africa. I arrived in South Africa in 2003 on the 6th of April, and started looking for a job. And I found a job at the University of Witwatersrand as a facilitator. And from there, I tried to study to do my master's, and which I did not complete until today, given the predicament I found myself in until this very day.
Please go
So in
on.
2004, already I noticed that the people were working at the UNHCR, the Organization for Refugees and Asylum Seekers. Most of them were from eastern side of Africa. They were either Kenyan or Ethiopian, somewhere Burundian, Ugandan, and Rwanda. You see, I even feel the frustration to pronounce this word Rwanda today. Many were from Rwanda. And as a matter of fact, several Congolese today in this country find themselves stranded with an asylum seeker and not being recognized as refugees in South Africa. That's when I also started standing up and asking myself, why should we be asylum seekers for 10 years, 5 years, 20 years, 30 years? But it's because the international laws prescribe that they protect the minority today, which is the Rwandan Tutsi people. And most of them were in the leadership of the UNHCR. So we made some marches at that time in 2004 against Kabila, against those that were in the UNHCR. And 2005, I was part of the people who did we were doing a project for the identification of the Congolese people in the Congo here. And when I did that, I still have the specimen here with me. But unfortunately, the mission was cut short, and I didn't pursue, but they took the document from my computer, and that's the document they used for the 2005, 2006 elections, 2011 elections, and the last 2018 elections. I've got all these documents on my office, in my office here on my table. And in 2011, during the elections that occurred in the Congo, they were fraudulent, and the Congolese community rose here to protest against those results. And as a consequence, many of the Congolese were arrested here in South Africa, and most notably in Johannesburg. And again, my activism that I was doing in Zaire and the Congo came up. I had to stand for the community here. The first people, I think I raised the fund for by myself, ensuring that none of them is deported. The second lot of people, 20, I had to ask the community that we rise together as Congolese, and we ensured that none of them is deported. So the third group was those who supposedly were plotting against overthrowing Kabila in 2012. They were arrested in a farm in the northern part of South Africa, in Limpopo. I also intervened, and they were all released. And the regime in Kinshasa was not happy with me and gave instructions that led me to the point that until today, I don't have documents in this country. So that was the scenario then. But besides that, I've always been involved with the media from the time I was in the Congo with CNN, BBC, Times Magazine as an interpreter and translator, which actually led me to know a lot about what was going on in my country and the plot that was against my country, and why I should defend the country. So, which would lead us to understand the current situation in the Congo, which started with Mobutu, um, with his chief of staff, who was already bringing the Rwandan Tutsi people to invade the Congo, and they all prefer to live in the eastern side of the Congo, mainly in the Kivu. And what baffles me is the way for many years they had to change the Kivu. If you know the history of the Congo, Kivu was just one big province. So then the successive regime split that province into three different provinces. So the South Kivu,
Oh.
the Maniema, and the Northern Kivu. So, and these,
And why is that?
well, we must understand the minute dividing to whole, when they divide you, you become weaker. So, and then in the northern part of the the northern part of Kivu, you have the capital, which is Goma. Southern part, it's Bukavu, where the rebels are actually planning to attack now. And then you have Maniema, where the former prime minister, Matata, was prime minister during Joseph Kabila regime, uh, was supposedly originating, but is also from a Rwandan descent. And all these Rwandan descent people have invaded the country and occupied position of leadership in the Congo. Ruberwa became a vice president of the Congo, but Ruberwa is a Rwandan Tutsi. Nyarugabo was a member of the parliament, and the list is not exhaustive. I can name those Bizimakara, who were also part of the regime, but they are from Rwandan descent. Then Roberwa mainly occupied the position of vice president in charge of the decentralization of the territory. So he's among the people who actually started reinforcing the fact that we have not only three provinces in the eastern side of the Congo that Mobutu left, but we had now 26 provinces in the entire Congo. So those little entities now, it becomes fragile for any invader to come and say this portion of the land is mine. And those Rwandan who came to Congo, who had no any uh, appetite for expansion, now suddenly have found themselves that appetite of saying we want this portion of land, and that's where we need to understand. And those territories are the territories where we have vast deposits of the three TG. So those key minerals that the fifth industrial revolution needs for their manufacturing. We can name the Tesla, we can name all the rest of the companies, including the automotive, because that raw material that we call the coltan, tungsten, tin, is needed for the microelectronics that we use in all the technologies that we are using now. Yes, today we can use it to pass the message, but other people are using it to kill and dismantle humanity. That is a key factor and a key feature of our Congo people. And when I say Congo, believe me, if I may call you my sister Ida, it is Ubuntu and Congo, I always say to people, let's
Of
stop
course.
writing Congo with C. We must start writing Congo with K, because Congo with K means God. There are many tribes in the Congo. When they start praying to God, they say A Congo, which means God the Creator. And that's our spirituality that they had taken away. So the Rwandan people are in Congo, that side of the Kivu, in Mulenge. Mulenge is a mountain. So, and they take the name of Mulenge and call themselves Banyamulenge, Banyarwanda, from Mulenge. But in understanding the sociological, anthropological aspect of the Congo, every tribe is linked to its land and a river. If we say Bayansi, we have the territory for Bayansi and they speak the language of Bayansi. There's no such language as Mulenge. There's no such thing as a river. But these people, they call them Mulenge and they can't speak Mulenge. And this is what people are not understanding. That's the narrative we need to extrapolate and explain to the people. Now, they took that portion and they protect it. And the people that are protecting that were those that were in power, mainly Joseph Kabila, who's also not from a Congolese descent, is from Rwanda. So we have been invaded, and if we compare that, it is the Vichy that happened in France during World War II that has happened in the Congo for the past 30 years.
Wow. I mean, thank you very much. I think it was really important for us to go back, in the where basically where it started, the history, understanding how everything has been building up to this moment, to this massacre that we are seeing today. And you mentioned there that we need to start basically writing Congo with the K. And you said that it's, they have taken away our spirituality. So it's very interesting because with my husband, with everything that is happening, we were like, this is, there must be something else. It cannot be just physical, because this there must be some powers behind that keeps the Congo in this state. And like you said, they came, they studied the people, they understand who they are dealing with and how to basically put the people down. And then from a spiritual perspective, they're also playing with us, but very subtly without even us understanding. Like, you said, instead of writing Congo with the K, they changed that and now it's a C. So do you think that the fact that we're writing Congo with a C has an impact whatsoever in what is happening?
It has got a very big impact. When I started this webinar with you and podcast, I think I said my name is Gisumba Mavu, he who bought the earth. So when I look into my history and what I have accomplished, it's because I still embody my identity, Gisumba Mavu. Though people call me Jean Bwasa, I can't change it because that's the name of adoption. And it would be a long process. Similarly to the Congo, it is difficult for the younger generation today to tell them, no, write Congo with K. Even in my community, when I told my wife, we must write Congo with K, people are not understanding what we mean by that. So the identity, who you are as Aida, it is your spirit that is within you. And once we understand the strength that is within that spirit, we are able to defend our land. Our ancestors, they died for that land. The music, today people speak about the rumba, but rumba was normally to keep the Congolese united in Cuba, the Congolese united in Guadeloupe, the Congolese united in Martinique. There are still people that are speaking that language in those islands where our ancestors were transplanted. Remember, these people were transplanted, uprooted from their tradition. So, and if we don't keep our tradition, who are we? So, the minute we'll get back our spirituality, if we are able to get back the masks that are in your museum in Europe and bring them back in Africa, we will get back our spirituality and strength. Because they told us not to pray those masks. But today we all go and kneel in front of a Jesus who is a statue. Now, our Congolese people are forced today to go to Rwanda and kneel in front of that stele that speaks about the Rwandan genocide. I would not do that because the people of my country that have been killed, slaughtered, not even killed, slaughtered, there's no monument that tells that Congolese were slaughtered in Makobola, Congolese were slaughtered in Mwenga. And in Mwenga, it's even tragic because 15 women were buried alive in Mwenga in 1999 by the Rwandan people. And this is to instill fear and to eviscerate our mind, to show us that we are less than human people. In Maluku, in the heart of Kinshasa, Kabila killed 450 young men, buried also alive in those mass graves. 20.
Did you say Kabila?
Kabila, yes. So, who speaks about those atrocities that have been committed onto the Congolese people, right from the slave trade? If we were not the people of God, that the first people that God created, why should we suffer such a tragedy and ordeal? People want our minerals, people want our land, but they don't want the Congolese to be there. So they had to wipe out all the Congolese people. And that's exactly what they're doing, killing the chiefs, the queens in the villages in the eastern side. And today, when I was thinking about this interview, I said to myself, we are all focused onto what is happening in the East, but it is also happening in the West. The Mobondo group, they are killing, and this Mobondo, it's an instrument of Kabila Joseph, who left it there, this country into disarray. The poor Tshisekedi, which was one of your questions, sadly for me at the beginning, when he came to power, when the media was interviewing me, I said, but this is just the Coriolanus of Shakespeare of the modern time. For people who have read Coriolanus, this is the character that Tshisekedi embodies, not understanding what is going on in his land because he signed the deal to be in power, but which power? A bone power. Because once you can't hold the power, you're just holding a bone. So to come back to your question, it is very important that as Congolese, we get back who we are with the K, which is Congo Jantotila, with God. When we go into science, It is very important when people say we don't know mathematics. I don't know if you know the Ishango bone. Do you know the Ishango bone?
I heard about
So
it,
the
yes.
Ishango bone is the oldest mathematical artifact. That's where even the pyramid in Egypt originated, which means that our spirituality is enticed with our mathematics. It's enticed with our medicine. Now, why are they erasing us? It's because of that strength that we hold in terms of humanity. Why would God give us the biomass which is protecting the entire universe? People speak about climate change, and I am fumbled because when you speak about climate change without integrating what Congo is doing so that we do not all burn. Once in a conference, I said, if it continues like that, I'm a leader of that country. I will cut all the trees in the Congo so that we all die because you don't want us. That land was given to us by God. So let's cut the trees, no more biomass, we all die. And then it will be equal. So it's as deep as it is, Congo, with K, rather than with C.
That's, that's very powerful. That's powerful because, what they did, because we are talking about the Congo, obviously, but they haven't done that just for the Congo. They have done it everywhere. First, basically, it's the same strategy that they did with slavery. When they were taking the slaves, they will take you, first of all, strip you of your identity. You know, they will, you won't be called by your own name. They will give you a name. They will give you a name so that you forget who you are. So that's exactly what they did to the whole continent, basically, because they changed even the names of the countries that have been changed with time. They've been changed. We don't even know the original name of Africa, the continent, how our forefathers were actually calling Africa. There are some names that sometimes come like Katiopa. I think it's Bakongo.
Mhm.
They call Africa Katiopa, but we still use the colonizer's name, which is Africa. And Africa, what does it really mean for us? Because I'm sure that if we go deeper into the name Katiopa, I'm sure that there's a meaning there, a powerful meaning, almost a prayer, for the whole continent. Because our ancestors were not giving names just for the sake of it, but they were giving names that had meaning. So today we find ourselves with a continent called Africa. We have no idea what Africa means, but we still call it Africa. Our countries have been, they changed the names, the original names of our countries. So basically, we are here. We don't know who we are. We have lost our identity. So and that was exactly their aim, for us to be lost and not to know who we are. But I believe that now, with all the information that we are getting, there are lots of books, lots of research, and we see actually that our true history coming back little by little. And I think that obviously they've been trying to hide that history, but I think that with time we will know who we are. But in the meantime, to come back to the Congo, we are talking about, with this conflict, this humanitarian crisis, we are talking about, apparently the estimated number is 7 million people who died, and that's just an estimate. I don't believe that it's just that. 7 million people. I don't know if you imagine the you know the atrocity that is, and it's still going on. 7 million people since the beginning of this conflict until today, and we are still, people are still dying every single day. So there must be something that can be done for us to stop this. So, Jean, what do you think? Like, people, like normal people like myself, and people who are watching this, what can we do to support? people in the in the areas that are affected by this conflict?
Well, first of all, the 7 million, I think you are below the estimate. We are in the 12, 15 million. So we have reached what Leopold II did in the Congo. And people have no intention whatsoever to stop because they want the raw minerals in the Congo. They want the children of the Congo to suffer in the mines. They pay them less than $2 a day. While they get those minerals, they have million. It is estimated that the deposit. I'm responding to your question, but trying to tap onto these issues as well. It is public knowledge that the deposit in the Congo is worth 24 trillion in dollars, US dollars. 24 trillion. Can we imagine? Now, the last census in the Congo was done in 1984. So in 1984, that's the time we had our last census. Today, it is believed that Congo, we are 100 million. But within the 100 million, statistics tell us that there are 8 million that are internally displaced in that eastern side of the Congo. We in the diaspora, I can't even say how many we are, because again, there's nobody who comes and say, let's count how many Congolese are. And our embassies are not doing that work. Because we are lost in translation between our desire to be exiled or asylum or refugees. Then we are lost. They don't exactly know the count. And those who do not go to register. And in the Congo, there is no registration for many reasons, because they don't want to do the registration, because the registration imply the identification of the Congolese who are really Congolese. Hence, the likes of Paul Kagame, Museveni, they wanted to erase the border of Africa so that they are able to implant their own Rwandan Tutsi and Kole in the Congo. And while you are in the UK, because what is the campaign to be done? We congratulate you for the campaign you did regarding those refugees that Kagame bought from the UK, when he said that all the refugees could come to Rwanda in Kigali, and residencies were built for them. That's how we need to do for the Congo. We need to stand, people that are in the UK, people that are in the US. We need to stand. And if it is to go and impeach a highway to prevent a highway from operating, the economic loss will be so much that I think they will take a decision for the Congo. Those dialogues in the international community are not necessary, because those people have connived with Rwanda and the Tutsi regime to protect them, given the Rwandan genocide. They feel that they were part and parcel of it. Let's protect them. Let's give them the opportunity. And they are doing businesses with Rwanda at the expenses of the Congo. So if today we were to go in front of Tesla, let's say for God's sake, and for 5 days, nobody returns home, but we all stay in front of Tesla. Believe me, in 5 days, the head of Tesla will change his mindset. If we go in a highway, that should be the same because they don't understand human right for us. They don't believe that Congolese are human right. We are fly. Just for one day, my sister Ida, 12 people, 12,000 people were killed in one single day in Goma. 12,000. But the media is talking about 3,000, 4,000. It looks like they were flies. They didn't have a family. These people didn't have children, or the children didn't have a father. Same applied to me 60 years ago. Today I tell the story without tears. But usually when I used to tell the story, I used to shed tears because it's inconceivable that we went to university, we went to school to learn about humanity, love one another, but we are still killing. It is as if the Second World War, when they said never again, did not happen. Jewish, there were just 6 million, but us, we have gone beyond 6 million. So what we need to do now, after we have done that, to call for justice. There should be an international inquest for the Congo, and then reparation, and the reconstruction of the Congo, not necessarily in terms of monetary. They must come and build the Congo for what they have caused in that land. Rebuild our humanity, because it's not just rebuilding a building, but it's also how we have been affected today as a human being. I can't stand to listen to a word Tutsi, which was not the case for many years. And if that's the scenario, why can't Kagame take his own people from the FDLR? He says there are FDLR. I did a research and a survey with Clark University in the US, because the other thing that I do research, and it was the journey those refugees who came, the Hutu people who came to Congo, how they lost their belongings, they lost themselves in those, and how they continue to be killed by the Kabila regime, Joseph, who was a Mututsi, so that they will erase them all. Uh, where is that? I think I've got it here. Now, that's one. The second thing, what we have been doing here in our organization is to keep the memory. We organized what we call My Congo, My Story, to talk about the Congo side, because myself, I don't call it the genocide in the Congo. I call it the Congo side, the killing of the Congolese in silence. In silence, we cry. In silence, we die. Congo side. That's how I have termed it. Just prior to this event happened in uh, in Goma on the 18th December, and I will send that to you. I was organizing a march, the March for Global Peace. But at the last minute, I was prevented to do the march, not knowing on the 18th of December, when I turned 60, that a month later, my brothers, my sisters, my nieces, my nephews, my grandmother would be forced to leave their place or be killed, so that Nanga, who declared Tshisekedi the president, would come and try to fool people. But how on earth could you declare somebody a president? Today you are saying no, he was not a president. He was coming in your house begging for money. Who are we fooling?
Yeah, I was saying what you said there is very indicative. It actually tells us what we need to do. Because, like you said, you wanted to have like a peaceful march, for peace. And that's, they know those people, because we talked earlier about spirituality. They know the laws of the universe, how because, all the killing that is happening now, obviously we are feeding, the fear, all the hatred and all that. It's feeding some spiritual entities on the other side, because we need to understand that that's our essence. We are spiritual beings. And that's something that our ancestors knew too well. Unfortunately, today we find ourselves, we have forgotten who we are, basically. We have forgotten our identity. And I think if there's a place, if there's a way for us to beat this system, it has to be from the spiritual perspective, because that's our strength. That's our strength. Having a march in which everybody is actually sending love to the Congolese people, reflecting on everything that is happening there, you know, and hoping for peace in the Congo. I don't know if you imagine from a spiritual perspective what that means. Millions upon millions of people doing that. We are just attracting that reality. That peace is not that far. It just us harmonizing and seeing the possibility of that peace, and we can make it happen. And they know that, so they have to stop you. If you say we are going to march against the war, or if you bring some brutality or some type of, I don't know, violence to it, they will let you do it, because it continues to feed what is happening there. So I just wanted to say that, because we need to understand that this is a spiritual warfare. Yes, there's a physical war happening. People are getting killed, but there's also something else happening from a spiritual perspective. I just wanted to add that. And earlier, you mentioned Tshisekedi.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about governance, because I think that's something that we didn't really highlight here in this conversation. So first of all, you did talk about, what you feel about Tshisekedi. But recently, I just want us to go back to what happened. And I think I was expecting, the NGOs, humanitarian NGOs, to talk about that and be like, how dare you in the 21st century? How can you do that? So obviously, I'm talking about the fact that with all the people who are dying every single day in the Congo, but President Tshisekedi decides to restore the death penalty in the Congo. How can you explain that? So for him, the millions of people who are dying, that's not enough for him. He wants to increase that number. And also, what I can't understand, like with that war which is going on today, the youth, the Congolese youth, that's a wealth that has to be used. That's a resource. The human resources have to be used, towards that, to help basically put an end to that conflict. The youth, I'm talking about how do you call
Wazalendo.
those young people. Was Yes, but I was talking about Kuluna as well.
Mm-hmm.
Kuluna, like in the heart of Kinshasa, those young people who are there, who are not looked after by the system, who find themselves in the streets and have to survive. And if you are in the streets, you don't have family, you have no one, you are not looked after by your own government. What can you do to survive? You are going to steal. Crime is the only option left for you. So instead of President Tshisekedi, instead of him looking at those young people and being like, okay, we are in war. We need people to go and fight for us. So these young people are here. They have nothing to do. Let's train them and maybe, put them in our army to help in this conflict. We saw, like, for instance, in Burkina Faso, President Traore, he was not like, okay, so our army is weak. Let's call Russia straight away, or let's call these, Romanians to come and help us. No, he was like, okay, we have our young people. Let's look after them. Let's train them and bring them into the army so that they can help to free our country. So, Tshisekedi, what is the logic according to you? Please, maybe you can help me understand that.
Well, I think I'll recourse to reading again The Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire. And people have been oppressed for many times. Likewise, Tshisekedi was also oppressed, so he said, during Mobutu regime. I don't necessarily believe in terms of his father being the opposition, because my definition of the opposition is quite opposite to the general understanding of the public. That's why many people call me the iconoclast and liberal thinker. In simple terms, his father was the associate to Mobutu, and together they assassinated Patrice Emery Lumumba. And when their interests were no longer in marriage, it's like a couple being married, when they could no longer get along because they belonged to the same master. Then there was a divorce, and the Tshisekedi, the children, Felix, they went into exile overseas. Maybe after when I returned to Africa. But again, as you were mentioning the Kulunas, we were all given the opportunities to study. The Kuluna are victims of a system of imperialism, capitalism, where the Congolese have been, for years, enslaved in such a way that they don't even receive their salaries. There are fathers and mothers that have been working in that country. Some are still working until today because they can't receive their pension, and the power is not giving their pension. Instead, they are embezzling the funds and enriching themselves, buying those Chanel bags, uh, shoes, cars, which tells me that this is a person called leader, head of state, who is still in his stage of teenagehood, because there are things that are like pleasure that at a certain point you say, no, I can't continue to do this. Hence, I said at the beginning, this is a Coriolanus whose childhood is not finished and he wants to please himself. For God's sake, the day Goma was falling, some members of his family were doing a party in South Africa, in Cape Town. Can you imagine that? That's inhuman. Now, the, the youngsters, and from my background, I have said this a number of times. I could turn anyone in the society. It is also a choice for an individual to choose what you want to be. From the age of 16, I could have turned a thug. I could have become a bandit, a terrorist, but I never did. I chose to study. I remember you might have finished your schooling or your matric or your high school living certificate age 17, 18. But I got mine. I was age 20. So I had to fend for myself, go, work, domestic work, and be able to become who I am today, an educator of the society, of humanity. Because when I stand in the media, sometimes here in front of a national TV, I'm not talking to 20 people, I'm talking to millions of people. So it's a choice that each and every individual has got to make, whether to be on the good side or on the bad side. This to respond to the Kuluna. It's a moral ground for me, age 16, with no food, to say, wait a minute, Jean, what do you want to become? It was also a moral choice when I went to university, when Mobutu closed the university during his time. Some students did not return to university. They say no. They went into the army. So the government is not there. I do not recon that government. But at the very least, this is a time for people that are patriots, the Coco and the rest, for us to unite and defend our land, to do what General de Gaulle did in 1942. We might not have the incentive that General de Gaulle had to come to the UK in London and made his call for the defense of the land. But we are still there. We are standing to defend our country. Tshisekedi won't do it because he's part and parcel of the system that brought him into power. He's not going to come and remove the death penalty because it is an insatiable desire for him to feed his power. We must understand that.
Well, I hope that one day we can use that against him because what they are doing there, with his family, like you said, that's a crime against, the Congolese people. While most of the people in the East are dying, are being killed, are being abused, you know, they are there, they don't seem to care. So,
Do you know when the Nirangongo volcano erupted? What did the government do? What did Chisekedi do? When they seized Goma, not Goma, Bunagana 3 years ago, Ruchuru, what did they do? Was there any policy put in place for them to say Bunagana has been taken? Let's take these youngsters that we call the Kuluna, train them. Because it's 3 years, Bunagana. So within 18 months, you would have trained the youth that were doing nothing in the street. You would have given them a salary for their families. And you would have actually provided them with hope that they can be useful for a good cause. Nothing. I don't blame him. I blame the father. I blame the leaders that came before us. Because apart from the united front that our forefather of independence, the Lumumba, shown in the 1960s, the Gizenga, the Kashamura, when they went to the round table to say, no, we're not going to discuss anything until Patrice Emery Lumumba is here. From that time, they were all, and unity is strength. Unity is God. Unity is within us, our spirituality. From the time they killed the forefather of our independence, that the time we lost everything and we lost the compass to become a united Congolese people, a united African people. No wonder that today Kagame is able to portray himself as a Pan-Africanist while he's not. For me, he's just a robot, a clone that is there. And beyond that aspect, we are talking about Rwanda. It is also the war, and this is I'm going to emphasize. It is the war between the Bantu people and the Tutsi people. And I said to some of the South Africans here, the second largest Bantu community in the Southern Africa after the Congo is South Africa. So once they are finished with us, they'll come for you in South Africa.
Let's hope that we'll find a way to stop this. During this conversation, there's a name that keeps coming back. Each time that we talk about solutions, Lumumba, Lumumba. It's a big loss, like you said, not just for Congo, but for the entire continent. Because that's a man. That was a man that had an agenda, and the agenda was mainly to free or white malice. You know what? I have we have planned with Coco Matata. He already read it, but I'm reading it. As soon as I finish reading it, we are going to discuss that book because it's really powerful. I think people really needs to understand where we're coming from. For people for us to understand our situation and try to find way out basically. Because I was talking about Lumumba. I really believe that because I believe in reincarnation. And when we look at our brother Ibrahim Traore, I'm like, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, but the guy basically is here to continue the work of Sankara. So I'm like, for the Congo, there must be a Lumumba hiding, growing somewhere. Lumumba must be among us. So, when is he going to manifest himself? When? Because the Congo mother, Mama Congo is crying. Like, how long, how many more deaths can we get before someone, a leader, a real leader, comes about and frees the heart of Africa? Because we cannot just, we feel helpless when it comes to that conflict because it's something that has been going on forever. And earlier I said that, we are counting 7 million, and then you corrected me, you said that it's 12 million. Because obviously when when they're doing their reports, they are trying to minimize things as much as they can. But we know, like you said, that, it's way more than that. So how many more years can we go like that with people dying every day? We must have our Lumumba back. So, young people out there, my message to you guys, to all the Congolese and to all the Africans, watching this in general, not just the Congolese. Let's not wait, for the solution to come from the outside. Let's not wait for Europeans who created the problem to bring the solution, because that will never happen. The solution has to come from us, whether you like it or not. Some people, when you talk, because obviously we are having this discussion here, but we also have also a lot of discussions offline with people, and most of the time you hear people, I don't want to die, I don't want to die. Do you think that the people who are dying in Eastern Congo, they want to die? They don't want to die. But we have, something has to be done. Something has to be done.
Well, it's, as I said, and I'm going to reiterate, it's unity. Unfortunately, politics, religion has divided us even more today. The churches that have been mushrooming in the Congo from the 1980s, it was planned for that. And the reason is simple, because when the person goes to church and the person spends 5 hours in a church, 3 days in a church without even looking after his family, that person is indoctrinated. So it was done in purpose. It is us who did not realize what was going on. I don't go to church, not because I'm not a believer. I believe in my Zambian Fumu. I know he's there and he protects me. He has been protecting me. But going to spend 5 hours, 6 hours in a church, no, never. Overseas, nobody goes to church until they become aging like me, 70s, 18. They're about to call that the only time they go and search uh, for God.
That's true.
Now, then politics. I do not prescribe and don't belong to any political party. In fact, when they come and I say, what's the point of belonging to a political party? Because they enslave your mind, they indoctrinate you, they want you to think in the same way. So we are in a prison of thought. And it is important that if we were to succeed in the Congo today, first of all, to teach the youngsters that they must have critical thinking minds, not saying, "Whoa, I'm from UDPS, UNC, Fayulu." I'm sorry, but this is enslavement of the mind. None of them has got his children in Africa or in the Congo. So, do they care that the children of Mama Congo are not going to school or go to school, but there's no bench for them to sit while we have the forest to build even schools in woods and have benches where children can study. So the third thing is hospitals. I think the greatest hospital that we can create is to provide food for people because people are dying mainly because they are hungry. If they were not hungry, they would not be going to hospitals because the disease and all the germs won't come within them. And which food again? Food that is not inserted with the GMO and all this. That should be food that our ancestors were planting. Today we speak about cancer. It's the food we are eating, and that food is to kill us. I mean, my great uncle used to Pierre Mulele, because I never mentioned that I come from the side of Pierre Mulele, who was another defender of the land. They used to eat the ngadiadia, so that whatever food they have, if it's poison, it's cured, it's treated. But this
What is Ngajanja? What is
it's
Ngajanja
like a
for
root,
us?
yeah, and you eat it. It's bitter, and it washes your liver and everything. You can put it in your wine, in everything. And there were many roots that our ancestors were taking. The wine we were taking was coming straight from the heaven. I used to give this to my student, and I say, uh, usually we speak about projection. If my ancestor were not intelligent, how would he discover that you can go on the palm wine and get on the palm tree and get the palm wine straight from God and quench his thirst? So it's about time we change our mindset and the way we live, the way we have our food, our clothing, uh, and we think. As a Kemet, you were mentioning the name of Africa, the Kemet land. we usually say as a Kemet dogma or a Kemet thinking, I speak, I live, and I try to be truth, worthy, and righteously. So that's the Kemet, which is one of the the principle that derives from the 42 principles of Mahat. When I see you, I see God. When I see Coco, I see God. How do I destroy a God that has been created at my image? And until as African we learn that, we are able to change the hearts of the people, such as the Kagame, the Museveni, the Tshisekedi, the Fayulu, then only this humanity will be restored. I was speaking about not saying xenophobia, but rather philophobia, because philo means love. Phobia, fear of love. Yes, for centuries, we have been taught to fear, to love ourselves, to have low self-esteem of ourselves. They inculcated that in our mind. And until today, we are still repeating the same mistake. And when I teach, I say to the student, start by loving yourself. When I love myself, then the light that will be shining within me, I can portray and project it to the next person, to my children, to the community around me. That's why I was able to spend 7 days in a cell, in a jail. Not for me, not because I committed a crime, but I saw that that person was innocent. It's a lady with a two, 2 weeks child. You arrest her for which reason? So, and they told me, you are preventing the justice to be done. You go in cell, and I'll spend there, and I will be released because I know that I'm there for a good cause. I could go and fight for Congolese here. They say we're not going to give you a document. It's fine, but I'm still alive. That's what matters. Alive for the rest of the Congolese, the African people that are here.
You know what? Thank you so much, Jean. This is so inspiring. And we really send you some, some love. We are not afraid to love. So we send you lots of love. And we send you strength and positive vibes, for our ancestors and for God, the Almighty to strengthen you so that you can continue to do the great work that you've been doing. Thank you so much. Having you here today to help us really, have this deep dive into what is happening in the Congo. I don't know about other people who will be watching this or listening to this, but I really feel like I have a better understanding. Because when you listen to the media, they make it sound as if it was a ethnic, ethnic conflict, like, Congolese people fighting each other. And they portray that very well because, we know how that the media is there to lie to us. So you will see, for instance, an armed man with a gun, ready to kill, with the Congolese flag right here, on his shoulder, so that we understand that the people killing each other, fighting each other, they are only Congolese people who, because they are from different ethnic groups, they are fighting each other because they don't like each other. When we understand today, thanks to, our brother, Jean, who came and actually explained the, the depth of the conflict which is there. So we understand that it's not just, it's not some ethnic conflict, but it's actually, there's a lot of power struggle because we know that the Western powers are involved, but they are using Rwanda to invade basically DRC, and take. I mean, how can we explain that there's no cobalt, for instance, in Rwanda, but Rwanda is the number one exporter of cobalt? Just like, think about that. Think about that. Where is the rationale? There's no rationale. They think that people are stupid, people don't understand. But nowadays, it's not just now, but I believe that the more basically people are researching, the more they're using the same they've been using the same strategy for years. So now people are understanding what they're doing. But I think we need to go beyond the understanding. We need to think, about our own strategies. How are we going to free ourselves from this? Because, like I said, it's not going to be, some American or some, I don't know, whatever Western person who is going to come to the Congo and be like, okay, enough is enough. That's not going to happen. So we need to, like our brother here, Jean said, we need to unite and leave aside all the, oh, I'm this, in terms of tribes, or I'm this, or I know that that's just the image that they're trying to push. But let's unite. It's possible. Let's unite and save our continent. Because in my country we have that saying. We have a saying that well, like when two people unite, they give birth to a pearl. They give birth to a pearl. It means that when I have an idea, I come, you share your idea, I share mine, what the result of that is going to be amazing, basically. So let's unite, let's not stop talking about what is happening in the Congo.